Let me sit beside you for a moment. We will move slowly. You do not need to brace yourself or pretend to be strong. Not here. This is a conversation meant to protect you, not test you. So rest your hands where they fall naturally. Let your breath soften. And listen to me the way you would listen to someone who has seen too much and cares too deeply to let you face certain things alone. I want to talk about something that is happening quietly in too many homes. Behind closed doors, behind polite smiles, behind the kind of trust older adults offer because they were raised in a world where decency was assumed, not negotiated. If a caregiver does this, if they do any of the things I am about to describe, I want you to know what it means legally, emotionally, and morally, and I want you to know what you are allowed to do about it. Let me begin with a woman I still think about. Her name was Alberta, 81 years old, the kind of woman who folded her dish towels perfectly and still kept her wedding ring in a small velvet box by her bedside. She had been widowed for 15 years, but she spoke about her husband as if he had just stepped into the yard to check the fence. That is how devotion stays alive. Quietly, ordinary, steady. Alberta told me she hired a caregiver named Denise. At first, Denise was gentle, helpful. She listened to Alberta's stories even when they wandered. She learned how Alberta liked her bed made. She brewed her morning coffee the way her husband used to. Alberta said she felt lucky. That is the part that breaks your heart later. The feeling of luck, the feeling of being chosen for kindness. But then the small things began. A missing pair of earrings, a cabinet door left open, shorter receipts than before, $50 gone from a drawer. Alberta convinced herself it was fatigue or age or forgetfulness. She said, maybe I'm the one who misplaced things. And she said it softly, as if asking permission to doubt her own mind. Let me tell you the truth. This is how exploitation often begins. Not with force, not with open threats, but with tiny shifts that make you question yourself. Caregiver theft is rarely loud. It is quiet, calculated, and wrapped in just enough kindness to make you believe you misunderstood. I sat with Alberta for 2 hours. She cried not because of the missing money, but because she could no longer trust the person she depended on. That is the injury most people never see. The wound beneath the wound, the loss of safety in your own home. And this is where fear meets the law. Theft by a caregiver is not a misunderstanding. It is a felony in many states. It is classified as elder financial exploitation. It is recognized as abuse, and you are allowed to say those words out loud. You are allowed to use the language the law uses, because softening the truth only protects the person who harmed you. Let me take you deeper into the second doorway of exploitation, misuse of bank cards or PIN cards. I once sat with a man named Theodore, 86 years old, a retired school bus driver who still kept the yellow cap from his uniform folded in a drawer like a memory he could hold. Walking had become difficult, so he asked his caregiver to pick up groceries. At first, Theodore handed over cash. Then one day, the caregiver said, "It would be easier if I used your card. I'll bring back the receipts." She said it with a kind voice, a calm voice, a voice that made him feel he was inconveniencing her by holding on to his own boundaries. 2 months later, his bank statements told the story the caregiver never intended him to read. Small withdrawals at first, $20, $40, then larger ones. Then charges at stores Theodore had never entered in his life. When he looked at those statements, his face tightened, not from anger, but from shame. He whispered, "I should have known." But what I told him is what I want you to hear now, clearly and gently. No, you should not have known. You should have been safe. Here's what they don't explain. No caregiver ever needs your PIN. No caregiver ever needs full access to your bank account. No caregiver ever needs to borrow your card. If they pressure you to hand over your card or PIN, that is not help. That is manipulation with a financial target. And legally, using someone else's card without permission is theft. The moment they use your card for anything you did not authorize, they have committed a crime, no matter how they justify it. And you are allowed to take your card back. You are allowed to call your bank. You are allowed to report it. Let me walk with you into something even harder to name: isolation. Isolation does not arrive all at once. It slips in, quiet as dust on a shelf. A caregiver answers the phone before you can reach it. They say a neighbor called, but it wasn't important. They tell your daughter you are resting when you are not. They offer to cancel appointments because it's too much for you today. They stay in the room when someone visits. They monitor your tone, your words, your expressions. One small intrusion becomes 2, then 10, and soon your world shrinks to the size of a single voice, the caregivers. I once met a woman named Pauline whose caregiver had slowly stepped between her and everyone who loved her. Pauline told me she hadn't seen her church friends in almost a year. Her caregiver always said the same thing. They mean well, but they don't understand your health needs. Her family would call. But the caregiver would say, "Your mother is confused today. She shouldn't get upset." The caregiver had built a wall disguised as protection. Isolation is not an accident, it is a strategy. It removes witnesses, it removes support, it removes the people who might say, "This doesn't feel right." And the law recognizes isolation as a form of emotional and psychological abuse. You are allowed to open your door again. You are allowed to reclaim your relationships. You are allowed to say, "I want to speak to my family alone." Now let me take you gently into manipulation. Manipulation is the slow erosion of your confidence. It is the steady suggestion that your judgment is slipping. It is the replacement of your instincts with their voice. A caregiver might say, "No one else understands you like I do," or "Your family doesn't visit enough. I'm the one who truly cares," or "You're lucky to have me." Most caregivers wouldn't do what I do. These statements are not affection. They are leverage. They create dependency. They weaken your boundaries. They make you hesitant to speak up because you fear losing the only person who seems to be helping you. But let me say something with absolute clarity. Care is not earned through guilt. Care is not conditional. Care is not something you must repay with access to your finances or your privacy. You are allowed to expect professionalism. You are allowed to expect honesty. You are allowed to expect respect. Now let me walk with you into legal truth, not in the cold voice of statutes, but in the protective voice of someone who wants your world to feel safe again. If you suspect theft, exploitation, or manipulation, you can. Speak to someone you trust. Document what you notice. Ask your bank to freeze unauthorized access. Change your PIN, request a new caregiver. Store valuables in a locked place, contact Adult Protective Services, report suspected crimes to local police. Reach out to your doctor who is trained to recognize elder abuse. Speak to a legal aid office or elder rights organization. You are allowed to do every one of these things, and you are allowed to do them without apology. Let me tell you something many older adults don't know. You do not need proof to report abuse. You only need concern. You only need suspicion. Your instincts are enough. Now let's talk gently about where and how to report concerns. If the caregiver works for an agency, start with their supervisor. They are required by law to address your concerns. If the caregiver is privately hired, contact Adult Protective Services in your state. You can simply say, "I am worried about possible financial or emotional abuse." They will guide you. If money has been taken, contact your bank's fraud department. They handle this every day with calm and patience. If you feel unsafe or believe a crime occurred, call your local police department and say, "I need to report elder financial exploitation." They will not criticize you. They will protect you. If abuse occurs in a nursing home or assisted living facility, contact your long-term care ombudsman. Their job is to stand between you and any mistreatment. Let me speak to your heart now, because legal truth protects your safety, but emotional truth protects your spirit. If a caregiver has manipulated you, stolen from you, isolated you, or pressured you, you may feel ashamed. You may feel like you should have known. You may feel like you allowed it. But let me soften that heavy thought. You did not fail. You did not invite this. You did not cause this. Someone else crossed a line you never would have crossed. Your kindness was exploited, but your character remains intact. Your trust was taken advantage of, but your dignity is untouched. Your world was narrowed, but your strength has not left you. You are allowed to reclaim your space. You are allowed to rebuild your connections. You are allowed to start over with someone worthy of your trust. And you are allowed to feel relief, not guilt, when the truth comes to light. If any part of this echoes your experience, even quietly, tell your story. Someone else may be living the same hurt in silence. And if someone you love might be facing this, share this with them. You might be the bridge back to their safety. Stay with me. This part matters more than you think. You deserve protection, you deserve dignity, and you deserve peace that no caregiver should ever be able to take from you.